Number 14. Dana Holmes versus LaSalle County, Illinois. In May of 2013, 33-year-old Dana Holmes was pulled over and arrested on suspicion of DWI in Marseille, Illinois. She was in the area for a wedding and allegedly consumed 3 times the legal limit of alcohol for driving. Holmes would later accuse 3 male officers and 1 female cop of pinning her to the floor at the LaSalle County Jail and forcing her into a cell where they allegedly stripped her naked and left her sitting in there with no clothes on. Then, a few minutes later, a staff member gave her a padded suit to wear. In footage of the arrest and booking process, Holmes appeared to be cooperating with the police. She could be seen moving her legs slightly during a search at the jail, right before the cops became forceful, but to many, this hardly seemed like a reason to take her to the ground and strip her. An agency spokesperson told the Chicago Tribune that Holmes was being mouthy and causing problems, but she denied that this was true and maintained her innocence. Later that year, Holmes filed a lawsuit against LaSalle County, the sheriff, and several officers. In it, she accused the 4 officers who strip-searched her of degrading, dehumanizing, and humiliating her. Her attorney, Terry Eckel, told ABC7 that only an officer of the same gender is permitted to strip-search a suspect under state law. In 2014, Holmes and 4 other plaintiffs who accused the jail of searching them similarly were awarded payouts amounting to $355,000 total. As part of the settlement, the LaSalle County Sheriff's Office wasn't required to admit any wrongdoing, but agreed to develop new policies and training protocols for its staff. The agency also agreed that the forcible removal of clothing would be an absolute last resort, and to keep any footage involving these types of incidents for at least 2 years after the fact. Number 13. Amanda Hton versus Layton, Utah. A mother from Layton, Utah named Amanda Hton was on her way to pick up some medicine for her sick child in October 2016 when another vehicle rear-ended her car. According to her estimation, the car that struck her was traveling at 30 to 40 miles per hour. Houghton reported the accident to police, but the situation only seemed to devolve after law enforcement responded to the scene. Suspecting that Houghton was intoxicated, a responding officer asked her to undergo a field sobriety test. She was taken aback by the request, and she was even more alarmed when the officer allegedly groped her while performing a search. Houghton was arrested on suspicion of driving while intoxicated, although a blood sample from that evening would turn up no trace of drugs or alcohol in her system. The alleged groping incident was captured on camera, and in the video, Houghton could be heard telling the officer not to touch her 2 different times. Opinions on whether the officer violated Houghton varied. While the Layton Police Department stood by the officer and denied any wrongdoing, Houghton believed that a female cop should have been called to the scene to search her, but that was something that likely wouldn't have been possible, according to a department spokesperson who told Fox 13 News that the agency only had 3 female officers and they weren't available at the time. Speaking with KSL News, former Salt Lake City Police Chris Burbank said that he thought the officer's actions seemed overly invasive and unnecessary. In addition to feeling invaded by the officer's search techniques, Houghton didn't think he had rightful grounds to test her for sobriety. Her lawyer, Robert Sykes, told Fox 13 that his client was shaken up from the crash, and he described the arresting officer as a bully cop who abused his authority. 4 months after Houghton's arrest, the DUI charge was dropped, but regardless, she moved forward with a lawsuit against the city, accusing the officer of groping and wrongful arrest. Unfortunately, though, the outcome of the case is unclear. Number 12. Maryland roommates versus St. George's County Police. 4 roommates were captured on video weeping in June of 2021 after police allegedly shot and killed their dog at their apartment in Prince George's County, Maryland. According to a lawsuit filed by the roommates in 2023, 3 officers responded to the residence after receiving a call about a dog bite. They then entered the apartment after obtaining a master key from a maintenance worker. In cell phone and body cam footage of the incident, one of the roommates could be heard asking the officers if they had a warrant. Then one of the cops replied that they didn't need a warrant because they had probable cause. Amid the commotion, Erica Umana's 6-year-old boxer Hennessy ran out of a bedroom and rushed past the officers, who responded by shooting and tasing the dog. Hennessy was taken to an animal hospital where Umana made the painful decision to euthanize her canine companion due to the complications the dog would have suffered from if she went on living. According to a $16 million lawsuit filed by the roommates, Umana was billed $800 for Hennessy's euthanasia, which the county offered to pay for if the young woman agreed not to talk to people about the incident. Umana and her fellow plaintiffs, Erica Erazo Sanchez, Deira Amaya Benitez, and Brandon Cuevas, have accused the Prince George's County Police Department of violating their Fourth Amendment right against unlawful search and seizure. The roommates further allege that the officers detained them without cause for several hours. The defendants, Jason Ball, Joseph Mihanda, and Anthony Jackson, were the subject of an internal investigation following the disturbing tragedy. Officer Joseph Mihanda was found guilty of conduct unbecoming of an officer and was disciplined internally. Officer Anthony Jackson was found guilty of a body camera violation and was suspended without pay for 2 weeks, while Corporal Jason Ball's case is reportedly still pending. Prosecutors have declined to pursue criminal charges against the trio, noting in a statement to the Washington Post that they believe the officers were acting in good faith. Many disagree, though, and the roommates are hoping for a favorable outcome. Number 11. Eric Allen versus Mount Juliet Police Department. During what began as a normal traffic stop in Mount Juliet, Tennessee one night in November 2022, Sergeant Joss Lowe told the woman behind the wheel that he was citing her for driving without a license and insurance. He said that it would be an easy one and that the woman's vehicle wouldn't be towed. He also advised her to get her license before her court date. The situation began to go downhill when Lowe asked the woman's passenger, 39-year-old Eric J. Allen, to exit the vehicle. Bodycam footage showed Allen leaning towards the driver's side of the vehicle, causing Lowe to become nervous. The sergeant told Allen to quit reaching, at which point Allen rolled up the window and showed both his hands. And as Lowe opened the passenger side door, Allen slid toward the driver's seat and began to drive off. Lowe proceeded to tase Allen while repeatedly ordering him to stop and threatening to shoot him. When Allen failed to obey the sergeant's commands, Lowe shot him 3 times. Officers pulled Allen from the car and performed CPR, but they were unable to revive him and he died from his injuries. The police department stood behind Lowe, who was placed on leave for a month while an investigation was carried out. After concluding that his use of force was justified and within protocol, Lowe's superiors allowed him to return to work. A grand jury ultimately declined to pursue criminal charges, but not everyone agrees that Lowe acted lawfully or ethically. In a $50 million lawsuit, Allen's mother is accusing the city of Mount Juliet and its police department of violating her son's due process rights and denying him his right to life, his right to feel reasonably safe, and his right to be free from excessive force. Representing the plaintiff, attorney Terry Clayton blamed the alleged misuse of force on a lack of de-escalation training and a reckless disregard for the safety of both Allen and the public in general. He also claimed that the police department failed to follow Mount Juliet's policies regarding the investigation of use of force incidents. But for now, the case is ongoing. Number 10. Ryan Elgen versus Winterset Police Department. While driving in Winterset, Iowa with a friend and a friend's child one night in October 2022, 41-year-old Ryan Elgen was pulled over by Officer Logan Camp, who suspected him of driving intoxicated. Elgen cooperated with field sobriety tests and a breathalyzer, which showed a blood alcohol content well below the legal limit. Despite this, though, Camp detained him for further testing, noting in an arrest report that he observed an odor of alcohol and other signs of intoxication. According to the version of events put forth by Elgen, he consented to another breathalyzer at the police station, and he once again tested well below the legal limit. He also provided a urine sample and was released. Meanwhile, Camp initiated an investigation and consulted with his supervisor, then obtained a warrant for Elgen's arrest on suspicion of operating while intoxicated and child endangerment. The urine sample tested positive for a drug called citalopram, which Elgen had already admitted he was taking for depression. Camp allegedly informed the Department of Transportation that Elgen had tested positive for a controlled substance even though citalopram isn't a controlled substance. The agency also began proceedings to revoke Elgen's driver's license for a year. An arrest report obtained by the Iowa Capital Dispatch confirmed Elgen's claims about his alcohol levels. The document further stated that when Camp called Elgen to inform him of his arrest, Elgen laughed, said good luck, and hung up the phone. He then turned himself in later that day. Prosecutors eventually dropped the charges against Elgen, and the court records regarding the case were expunged. But Elgen believes that the arrest should have never happened in the first place. He's now suing Camp and the Winterset Police Department for false arrest, unreasonable seizure, and common law negligence. And as of December 2023, the defendants had not yet filed a response to the lawsuit. Number 9. Chan Weeks Rivera versus Maplewood Township. In November 2023, a longtime officer of the Maplewood Township Police Department in New Jersey accused her employer of unlawfully disciplining her for wearing a traditional African hairstyle. 38-year-old Chan Weeks Rivera was accused of violating the department's dress code over the summer for wearing her hair in Bantu knots, a protective style that's commonly used to prevent breakage and moisture loss. 11 days later, Weeks Rivera received a formal complaint from the agency's Internal Affairs Department while her sergeants were written up for allegedly failing to properly supervise her. In a separate notice, Captain Peter Kunzel wrote that the officer had worn her hair in rollers on the job. Weeks Rivera told NBC News that she was embarrassed and felt inferior after learning that she was in trouble due to her hair. In a lawsuit, she accused Kunzel and the department of discriminating against her and disciplining her due to her race and ethnicity. Her attorney, John Coyle, further alleged that by reprimanding his client's superiors, the Maplewood Police Department punished employees for not discriminating against Weeks Rivera. Under New Jersey's Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair Act, or Crown Act for short, it's illegal to discriminate against an individual based on hairstyles associated with race. In addition to the hair-related allegations, Coyle accused the police department of highlighting his client when it benefits the agency, including in past social media videos, only to come after her for celebrating her heritage. Through the lawsuit, Weeks Rivera hopes to ensure that the department follows laws banning hairstyle discrimination. She's also pursuing monetary compensation in the form of reimbursement for lawyer fees and other costs, as well as punitive damages. Number 8. Noah Peterson versus Newton, Iowa. The right to criticize politicians, leaders, and other powerful people is one of the most highly valued American freedoms. An Iowa man named Noah Peterson decided to take advantage of this right in 2022 after bodycam footage of a local teenager's arrest in Newton went viral. In the video, which garnered over 2 million views within days of appearing online, police could be seen arresting 19-year-old Tavin Galanakis on suspicion of driving intoxicated, even though a breathalyzer showed that he had no alcohol in his system. After realizing that Galanakis wasn't drunk, the officer asked him how much weed he'd smoked that day. He denied using any marijuana and was released hours later after undergoing additional testing. Naturally, the footage sparked a debate among locals about whether the officer mistreated Galanakis, who is suing the city of Newton for false arrest. During a Newton City Council meeting about a week after the incident, Noah Peterson described the local police force as a violent organization and called for the agency to be defunded. The local mayor, Michael Hansen, interrupted the diatribe and told Peterson to stop speaking about the police in a disparaging way. He also threatened to have Peterson arrested if he continued talking. About a month later, Peterson attended another city council meeting. This time, he accused one of the officers involved in Galanakis' arrest of being a domestic abuser and claimed that the city was refusing to release records regarding the cop's alleged domestic abuse. Hansen once again interrupted Peterson and signaled to the police chief, who led the young man out of the meeting in handcuffs. Peterson was charged with disorderly conduct, but it didn't stop him from attending a third city council meeting several weeks later and calling the mayor and police chief the top two fascists in town. The mayor told Peterson to sit down, but he refused, at which point the mayor ordered for the cameras that were recording the meeting to be turned off. In a lawsuit, Peterson claims that he argued with the mayor off camera and was arrested a second time for disorderly conduct. But the two disorderly conduct charges were dropped by county prosecutors. Lawyers for the city pursued one of the charges but dropped the other after Peterson was found not guilty. As a result of the controversy, the city abolished a rule banning derogatory comments at public meetings. Peterson is seeking an unspecified amount of damages from the city after allegedly restraining his right to free speech and unconstitutionally silencing him. The lawsuit accuses local officials of violating his First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment rights by arresting him without probable cause and refusing to listen to his criticisms. Number 7. William Bivens versus Michael Kilgore. While driving into Center, Alabama late one night in early 2023, William Bivens and his girlfriend, Amanda Woods, were pulled over by Officer Michael Kilgore. The 39-year-old cop told the couple that he'd enacted the traffic stop because the vehicle's license plate light was out. Kilgore then asked for permission to search the vehicle. Bivens did not consent, so Kilgore proceeded to handcuff him and Woods. Canine officer Shane Butler reported to the scene, and his dog detected a bag of methamphetamine in the passenger side of the vehicle. Bivens denied that the drugs belonged to him, insisting that he had no idea where the narcotics came from or how they got into his vehicle. But he was nevertheless arrested and booked into the Cherokee County Jail on suspicion of criminal conspiracy to distribute drugs. The charges against Butler and numerous other defendants were dropped a few months later when Kilgore was arrested for allegedly planting drugs in innocent people's vehicles. Kilgore was fired from his job, and his criminal case appears to be ongoing. Bivens filed a lawsuit against Kilgore, claiming that the crooked cop's drug planting activities were discovered thanks to a confidential informant who tipped off the authorities. According to AL.com, Kilgore spent less than a year on the center police force, and during that time, the agency made Facebook posts noting a significant number of drug-related arrests. Kilgore was also named as a defendant in a lawsuit accusing him and several other officers of using excessive force during an incident that occurred outside of a bar in September 2022. The plaintiff, Terry Lee Hawkins Jr., accused Kilgore of tasing him without provocation or probable cause. But unfortunately, the current status of the case is unclear. In a public statement following Kilgore's arrest, Center Police Chief Kirk Blankenship expressed the department's disappointment in the former cop's conduct and acknowledged that there's no excuse for an officer to violate the law in the ways that he's accused. Little else has been revealed about the case, including Kilgore's reasons for allegedly planting drugs on innocent people. Number 6. Edward Bronstein versus California Highway Patrol. A California man named Edward Bronstein died in police custody in 2020 after his crippling fear of needles caused him to resist while officers tried to take a blood sample. The 38-year-old had been pulled over in Altadena on suspicion of driving while impaired. California Highway Patrol officers took him into custody and attempted to obtain a blood sample, but Bronstein was initially uncooperative. In a body cam footage, an officer could be heard telling Bronstein that he had one last chance to comply before the officers would put him in a face-down hold and take the blood sample by force. Multiple officers could be seen forcing Bronstein down as he yelled repeatedly that he would provide the blood sample willingly. As many as 5 officers participated in the takedown, one of whom could be heard telling Bronstein it was too late to continue with a voluntary sample. While restrained on the floor, Bronstein began to repeatedly yell that he couldn't breathe, but the officers continued to hold him down, with one of the cops telling him to stop yelling. Bronstein's voice softened, and he eventually became silent, not because the officer told him to quiet down, but because he was dying. As a medical professional took the blood sample, someone observed that Bronstein was unresponsive and speculated that he might not have a pulse, but they didn't try rousing him until after the sample was drawn. In the body cam footage, the medical worker could be seen slapping Bronstein in the face and telling him to wake up. It took the team more than 11 minutes after Bronstein became unresponsive to start CPR, and by then it was too late to save his life. The medical examiner ruled his cause of death as acute methamphetamine intoxication during restraint by law enforcement. In a second video clip, an officer could be heard observing that Bronstein was blue when they rolled him onto his back to try to revive him, and another person at the scene reminded everyone that they were on camera. In early 2023, 7 California Highway Patrol officers and the nurse who took the blood sample were charged with involuntary manslaughter. A few months later, Bronstein's family won a $24 million judgment in a lawsuit accusing 9 officers of using excessive force and violating his civil rights. It was the largest civil rights settlement of its kind in California's history. And since Bronstein's death, the California Highway Patrol has implemented new policies barring the use of techniques or transport methods that pose a substantial risk of asphyxia. Number 5. Maurice Hastings versus Los Angeles County. Maurice Hastings spent decades trying to prove his innocence after being convicted in 1988 of a brutal carjacking and murder that had occurred 5 years earlier in Los Angeles. After his first trial ended in a hung jury, a second jury found him guilty of killing 36-year-old Roberta Weidemeyer and attempting to kill her husband and a friend. Hastings was sentenced to life in prison without parole as a result. There was no physical evidence implicating Hastings in the crime. His only connection to the case was his use of Roberta's calling card number after her murder. He claimed that he got the number from someone else and was never in possession of the actual card. New DNA findings proved Hastings' innocence in 2022, and he was finally released after languishing behind bars for 38 years. The test results also identified a new prime suspect, Kenneth Packnett, who passed away in prison in 2020 while serving time for unrelated charges. In November 2023, Hastings filed a federal lawsuit accusing 2 former detectives who were assigned to Weidemeyer's murder case of fabricating evidence. According to the complaint, police had arrested Kenneth Packnett in connection with several other thefts during the murder investigation. They found some of Weidemeyer's jewelry in his possession, yet never investigated him or criminally charged him in connection with the case. The lawsuit further alleges that the detectives influenced witnesses to change their stories after they initially failed to recognize him in a photo. Furthermore, Hastings is 6.5 feet tall and has a distinctive gold tooth, while witnesses described the perpetrator as 6'1" with white teeth. Packnett more closely resembled the description, yet for whatever reason, investigators allegedly developed tunnel vision and became determined to secure a conviction against Hastings. Hastings is accusing the defendants of depriving him of his liberty without due process, denying him a fair trial, malicious prosecution, failure to intervene, and civil rights conspiracy. He's currently seeking an unspecified amount in damages and said in a statement that he looks forward to holding the people who ruined his life accountable. Number 4. Gregory Gross versus the Yuba City Police Department. A camera was rolling in April 2020 as Army veteran Gregory Gross cried out in desperate agony, yelling to the cops around him that he couldn't breathe or feel his legs. Just moments earlier, he'd been slammed to the ground outside a hospital in Yuba City, California, where officers were holding him face down and ignoring his pleas for help. One officer could even be heard telling Gross that they were done with his silly little games. The ordeal began during a traffic stop, during which Gross was accused of driving drunk and causing a minor crash. It's unclear what led police to resort to such forceful action, but the encounter left him with a broken neck, forcing Gross to undergo 2 operations to fuse his spine. Today, Gross remains paralyzed and under round-the-clock care, which he'll require for the rest of his life. In one of California's largest police misconduct settlements to date, Gross was awarded a $20 million lawsuit settlement in 2023. As part of the settlement, the Yuba City Police Department agreed to implement several new policies aimed at preventing a similar tragedy from occurring again in the future. The new measures include random audits of body cam footage and the use of new de-escalation techniques. During a press conference announcing the outcome of the lawsuit, Yuba County Police Chief Brian Baker apologized to Gross and admitted that the department missed the mark with its conduct. Number 3. Trayvon Mitchell versus Louisville Metro Police. On July 6, 2021, Louisville Metro Police Officer Ben Sullivan tried to pull over a man named Larry Williams for having expired tags. Williams sped off, sparking a dangerous pursuit that reached speeds of up to 95 miles per hour as he sped through a red light and fatally struck 22-year-old Trayvon Mitchell, who was riding on a moped. The collision set off a chain reaction, leaving 4 others injured after their vehicles were hit. Larry Williams was charged with murder and was ultimately found guilty of manslaughter. He's currently serving prison time with a projected release date of 2036. But Trayvon Mitchell's family also blamed Officer Sullivan for their loved one's death. In a lawsuit filed jointly with other victims of the crash, the plaintiffs accused Sullivan of violating the police department's policy banning its officers from pursuing fleeing drivers who are suspected of traffic violations. In a statement, the police department denied that Sullivan chased after Williams, claiming that the pursuit was terminated shortly after the suspect fled. Yet surveillance footage from a nearby supermarket appeared to show Sullivan arriving at the crash scene within seconds of the accident. After a nearly 2-week-long trial, a jury awarded the plaintiffs $31 million. 3% of the blame was placed on Sullivan, which means the city will have to pick up a large portion of the tab. Number 2. Jordan Rivero versus Monroe County, Florida. 19-year-old Jordan Rivero's life changed forever during the drive home from a fishing trip in the Florida Keys with some friends in July 2022. The vehicle he was riding in veered across the highway and crashed into a concrete pole, leaving Jordan and another young man trapped inside the vehicle with serious injuries. Monroe County deputies pulled the men from the wreck and told Jordan to sit down, but he was panicked, disoriented, and struggling to breathe due to a broken nose. He kept standing up and was tackled to the ground by deputies. Then, during a second scuffle, one of the deputies tased him, causing him to fall and hit his head on the pavement. According to Jordan's version of events, he had a seizure after falling and awoke from a coma in the hospital after flatlining in the ambulance. Bodycam footage of the incident showed Jordan sobbing in the moments before he was tased. He then clutched his chest and screamed in pain before falling and hitting his head twice as his body convulsed from the shock of the taser. In a lawsuit against the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Jordan accused the deputies who responded to the car accident of treating him like a criminal suspect. He claimed that he was tased 4 times within 1 minute and described law enforcement's treatment of him as extreme, unnecessary, and unreasonable. The complaint claims that the teen suffered a traumatic brain injury and that he had to be resuscitated several times on his way to the hospital. And due to the severity of his injuries, the first hospital emergency responders took him to were unable to treat him. So he was airlifted to another hospital where he was put on a ventilator. Jordan's lawyer, Dana Foreman, denied an allegation that her client punched one of the responding deputies in the face with a closed fist, arguing that the accused act wasn't captured on bodycam footage. A sheriff's report further accused Jordan of being combative and actively resisting after being tased, claiming that it was necessary to continue tasing him in order to get him under control. The lawsuit requested a jury trial and is seeking at least $75,000 in damages. And if the jury rules in Jordan's favor, they'll have the option of awarding him a higher amount. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear more bizarre and crazy stories, stay tuned after the video for some more content. Number 1. Leonard Cure versus Buck Aldridge. After languishing in a Florida prison for 16 years on a wrongful conviction for armed robbery and aggravated assault, Leonard Allen Cure was exonerated in 2020. His life sentence was thrown out, and he was released from prison at the age of 53. Leonard's freedom was tragically short-lived. In a scenario that has become all too common for unarmed African-American men in the United States, he was shot dead by a cop during a traffic stop in Camden County, Georgia, in October 2023. According to police, Leonard was pulled over for speeding and driving erratically along I-95 near the Florida-Georgia line. Rather than follow the customary protocol of approaching Cure at the driver's side window and asking for his license, insurance, and registration, Deputy Buck Aldridge immediately ordered him to exit his vehicle. Dashcam footage showed Leonard initially cooperating with Aldridge's commands. But he began to panic when the deputy told him he was under arrest for reckless driving and for speeding in excess of 100 miles per hour. While obeying Aldridge's order to put his hands on top of his vehicle, Leonard commented how he should only receive a ticket rather than be arrested. He refused Aldridge's command to put his hands behind his back, at which point Aldridge tased him. The men became entangled in a struggle, which ended with Aldridge fatally shooting Leonard, who immediately stopped fighting back and collapsed. It might be easy to assume that if Leonard had simply obeyed Aldridge's instructions, he might still be alive today. But after watching the video, many people were quick to notice that Aldridge automatically took an aggressive approach to Leonard. Speaking with the Associated Press, criminal justice professor and former police officer Thaddeus Johnson shared his opinion that Aldridge displayed a lack of control over his emotions and needlessly escalated the situation. And this wasn't the first time he was accused of losing his temper on the job. Bodycam footage that surfaced in 2022 showed the rage-prone cop screaming expletives while he dragged and punched the driver of a car that had just crashed at the tail end of a high-speed chase. Aldridge faced no disciplinary consequences and was promoted 2 months later. 4 years earlier, in 2018, he'd been fired from the police force in Kingsland, Georgia, after racking up 3 complaints accusing him of excessive force. During the final incident that cost Aldridge his job, he allegedly picked a woman up and threw her on the ground while attempting to handcuff her during a traffic stop. She wasn't under arrest, but she was being cuffed to prevent her from getting in her vehicle. After Leonard Cure's death, Aldridge maintained that he acted in self-defense. 3 different experts told the Associated Press that the shooting was likely legal, since Aldridge seemed to be in danger when he pulled the trigger. But given the deputy's history, some believe that he should have never been able to carry a badge again. In December 2023, renowned civil rights attorneys Ben Crump and Harry Daniels announced their intentions to file a $16 million lawsuit against Aldridge on behalf of Leonard's surviving family members. But Aldridge hasn't been criminally charged in connection with the case, which is currently under investigation by state authorities.
11. An ironic encounter. Police body cam footage from 2022 showed a pair of officers walking up to a man and a woman at a store in what looks to be Las Cruces, New Mexico. In a hushed tone, one of the officers asked the couple if they were taking off tags from clothing. The man denied that they were doing anything wrong and responded by handing the officers a pair of pants he was looking at as proof that he wasn't taking any tags off. As the man bent over to pick something off of his shoe at the officer's requests, the police saw something that concerned them, so they decided to physically restrain him. The young woman he was shopping with was also handcuffed as a result. Several pieces of suspected stolen merchandise were discovered in her pockets, and she was arrested for shoplifting. In an ironic twist, the woman told an officer that her first name was actually Honesty while she was being questioned. She didn't want to tell the officer her boyfriend's name and was surprised to find out that she could be charged for obstruction and held in jail for refusing to reveal the information. Although she eventually coughed up the man's name, the suspect was told that she could have simply worked with the police in the first place. If she had, she would have walked away with only a low-level citation. Instead, she faced a more serious charge and the possibility of being held at county lockup while waiting for her court hearing. 10. William Dicki and Tara Eusifero. In 2021, William Dicki II, a 39-year-old Providence, Rhode Island police officer, and his wife, Tara Eusifero, were accused of stealing merchandise from a Lowe's store location in Warwick. According to the authorities, the couple left with about $66 worth of insulation and an air conditioner worth $380. Surveillance cameras captured what seemed to show Dicki leaving the store without paying for the items. Both suspects turned themselves in after realizing they were wanted, and Dicki was suspended without pay while his case played out in court. They pleaded not guilty, but were ultimately convicted of the crime in early 2022. According to a court agreement, Dicki and Eusifero agreed to pay fees connected to the theft instead of serving jail time. And as long as they stayed out of trouble for an entire year, the case would be dismissed. 9. Eva Pena. In September 2019, a 37-year-old NYPD sergeant named Eva Pena was taken into custody for allegedly stealing $360 worth of clothes from a Macy's in Yonkers, just north of the Bronx. A loss prevention worker stopped the cop, who was off duty at the time, as she left the store. According to an internal report, surveillance footage captured a guard pulling items out of the woman's purse. At the time, Pena was earning an annual salary of $107,000 for patrolling the New York City Housing Authority projects. She had recently posed for multiple photos in a skimpy outfit with then Police Commissioner James O'Neill for an event. Her life got a lot less glamorous, though, after her arrest for petty larceny, which was immediately followed by her suspension from the force. Pena accused the store's staff of targeting her simply because she's Dominican. She also accused an undercover security guard of attacking her in the dressing room and shouting that they hated the police. But as far as law enforcement was concerned, the surveillance footage spoke for itself. In the words of Assistant Deputy Commissioner of Trials Josh Kleinman, Pena seemed calm as a cucumber when she left the dressing room and kept shopping. He concluded that her claims against the store's employees were probably unlikely, implausible, and bizarre. Pena later filed a civil lawsuit claiming that she was followed by security guards while she shopped, but that nobody actually saw her commit a crime. In early 2023, the current police commissioner, Keechant Sewell, signed off on Pena's dismissal from the job. The court chaos seems to be ongoing. 8. Sierra Zerb. During a 2022 family shopping trip to a Burlington coat factory in Las Vegas, a woman and her 2 children were suddenly faced with a barrage of pepper spray. The trio were about to walk into the store when they noticed the alarm was going off thanks to a shoplifting incident. According to media reports, the suspect was seen leaving the store with a cart full of stolen merchandise. When the woman noticed that the shoplifter was parked in the space right next to her and was loading clothes into the trunk of their vehicle, she asked an employee if they wanted her to take a picture of the suspect's license plate. The worker said yes, so the Good Samaritan whipped out her phone and started recording. She was quickly confronted by the shoplifter, who asked the woman twice if she had a problem with something, and then deployed the pepper spray. The suspect, a young woman named Sierra Zerb, fled the scene in her car and was later arrested outside an apartment building. 7. Charles Brito. New York City retailers are used to handling shoplifters, especially in tourist hotspots. One morning in July 2023, a 50-year-old homeless man and serial shoplifter named Charles Brito went into a CVS store in Times Square. A confrontation between Brito and one of the store's security guards, 46-year-old Scotty Eno, quickly escalated into violence, eventually turning deadly. The security guard stabbed Brito to death during what he said was an act of self-defense. According to Eno, Brito pummeled him in an unprovoked attack while trying to steal some creamer, giving the employee no choice but to use deadly force. Authorities still charged Eno with murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Tensions between Brito and Eno had been brewing for weeks before the crime, according to Eno's lawyer, who later claimed that Brito threatened to kill his client repeatedly. At least 4 or 5 times, Eno confronted Brito while he was trying to steal and told him not to. But Eno didn't even get a chance to approach Brito, according to the defendant's lawyer, who claimed that Brito came at his client already swinging. After being held at Rikers for several days, Eno was freed on a $100,000 bond, pending the outcome of his case. Eno suffers from sickle cell anemia, but has held steady employment since he immigrated to the U.S. from Grenada over a decade ago. Before his arrest, he worked multiple jobs to support his family. One of his bosses paid his bail. Charles Brito's family told the New York Post that they tried everything to get the victim off drugs, but nothing helped. Brito's father, 75-year-old Juan Brito, said that he occasionally wired his son money and helped with food, but that his son lived a tragedy. Unfortunately, he also died tragically. 6. Michael Matias Pena. Over a month-long period that started in May 2023, a pair of shoplifters stole at least $4,000 worth of shoes from a Nike factory store in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. During the first theft, employees reported that a suspect made off with 28 pairs of shoes. About a month later, the same 2 people returned to the store and left with 9 more pairs of shoes that they didn't pay for. Investigators later identified one of the suspects as a 22-year-old man from Bridgeton, New Jersey, named Michael Matias Pena. He was soon taken into custody by the New Jersey State Police and extradited back to Delaware, where he now faces charges of felony shoplifting, over $1,500, shoplifting, under $1,500, as well as organized retail crime. Matias Pena remains free on an unsecured $2,000 bond while waiting for his next court date. 5. Lisa French. A Connecticut woman whose history of thefts dates all the way back to 1992, found herself facing her most serious charges ever in 2023. The incident started when Manchester police saw a woman matching the description of a suspect who was wanted for shoplifting. The thief robbed a Dick's Sporting Goods just a few hours earlier. They approached the individual, who was in a stolen car being driven by 51-year-old Lisa French, the woman with the shoplifting record. According to police, French stopped her friend from getting out of the vehicle and sped off as police tried to take the woman into custody. French is now accused of striking a nearby officer and pinning him between two cars. She also allegedly hit several police vehicles and at least one civilian vehicle before she and her friend ditched the car and escaped on foot. Both suspects were later captured at a nearby Hampton Inn, where a police dog found them hiding behind some curtains on the hotel's third floor. A warrant said that both women had cocaine in their possession at the time of their arrests. Authorities charged French with multiple crimes, including attempted assault on an officer and first-degree reckless endangerment. During her hearing, her public defender explained that his client was unemployed and struggled with substance abuse and mental health. The prosecutor described French as a habitual offender who had faced larceny, forgery, impersonation, and other charges. French remains behind bars on $150,000 bail. 4. Booze theft ring busted. Over a 9-month period that started in 2021, a group of 5 alleged thieves stole around 70,000 pounds, or $89,000 worth of alcohol from stores across England. During each raid, the suspects took anywhere between 2,000 and 5,000 pounds, $2,600 and $6,400 worth of goods. Each group member played a role in the heists, and they used both earpieces and cell phones to carefully coordinate their movements, ensuring that there was a getaway car waiting nearby. The first 2 arrests happened in February 2022, when Alan Chica and Ionut Razvan George were picked up on suspicion of shoplifting from a store in Kent. Police then launched an investigation and discovered through CCTV footage that the suspects were part of a bigger operation. Based on their findings, 3 more suspects were arrested: Valeriu Kobzarenku, Andrei Stefan, and Vincentiu George. The defendants received varying sentences ranging from 1.5 years to 2 years and 1 month. 3. Richard Quickstra. Retail theft has become a huge issue throughout the United States in recent years, and it only seems to be getting worse. Authorities are putting a large portion of the blame on habitual offenders who seem to not stop stealing no matter how many times they get in trouble for it. In Grand Rapids, Michigan, investigators pointed the finger at a serial shoplifter named Richard Quickstra, who had dozens of theft convictions under his belt dating back to 1988. According to prosecutors, Quickstra went right back to stealing immediately after being released from prison in January. He's accused of going on a crime spree all over the metro Grand Rapids region, racking up 9 retail fraud cases over just a few months. A few of the cases came with felony-level charges. Felony retail fraud can come with a 5-year sentence in Michigan, and the sentence can be increased based on prior convictions. Quickstra's recent thefts range from allegedly taking 18 packs of beer to making off with thousands of dollars worth of items. In most cases, he was reportedly recognized by several loss prevention employees. He has since pleaded not guilty and is in the process of facing the cases in court. 2. Ismile Flores. Over a 5-month period that started in October 2022, Victoria's Secret and Target stores in Phoenix and Tempe, Arizona, were robbed by a serial thief. According to court documents, 23-year-old Ismile Flores stuffed pants and underwear into a garbage bag and left stores without paying multiple times. He is also accused of leaving stores with shopping carts full of stolen merchandise. Investigators have identified at least 17 alleged incidents at Victoria's Secret stores alone, not counting the Target thefts. The suspect made off with anywhere from $200 to $2,300 worth of goods each time he stole. When police officers took Flores into custody, he allegedly had suspected fentanyl pills and drug paraphernalia on his person. This is far from the young man's first rodeo with the law. As of his most recent arrest, Flores had 43 prior shoplifting cases on his record. He now faces almost 24 counts in connection to his alleged crime spree, including 19 counts of organized retail theft, 2 counts of shoplifting, and 1 count of drug possession. 1. Derica Conway. A Nordstrom store located in Nashville, Tennessee, lost almost $20,000 worth of handbags at the hands of shoplifters in May 2023. According to arrest documents, 2 women were seen walking into the store and heading in separate directions. They are accused of stealing 10 handbags with a cumulative value worth $18,224. Authorities identified one of the suspects as Derica Conway, an alleged serial shoplifter who had been charged in several past cases. In 2015, she was accused of working with 2 other women to steal over $2,000 worth of goods from a J.C. Penney's. She was also arrested in Murfreesboro in connection to a string of retail store thefts. Police reportedly found more than $10,000 worth of items in the woman's trunk. At the time, there were already warrants out for her arrest for allegedly stealing over $5,800 worth of stuff from a Victoria's Secret store, as well as several other shoplifting incidents. In December 2022, Conway was accused of stealing $3,000 worth of perfume from an Ultra Beauty store in Hendersonville. In connection to the Nordstrom theft, Conway faces charges of theft of merchandise, probation violation, criminal impersonation, and failure to appear.
If you knew that you were unlikely to receive a dime from a lawsuit settlement against someone who wronged you, even if the judge ruled in your favor, would you proceed with the case for the sake of justice alone? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.